Okay. So thank you all for joining the session. So what I'm going to do is very briefly explain what we are thinking in terms of what this service will deliver or what this division will deliver. And then I want to open it up because really I want to hear about whether this kind of thing will meet your expectations or not. And, if what else would you need, if anything, and so on and so forth. And we will see whether we can deliver it, right? And maybe not now, but maybe later, we'll see, right? So first, I wanted to just sort of give a little bit of a background on what is an RIA, what is the kind of difference between an RIA, a wealth manager, and so on and so forth, right? So there are also distributors who distribute mutual funds. And the wealth managers, it could be your bank where you are a private wealth management customer, or you could be a customer of a wealth management firm. And some people with very high net worths could have family offices which handle their net worth. So where an RIA fits in is that the RIA has to pass through a lot of compliance rules set by SEBI. So very few people want to become RIAs, right? Because the RIAs require net worth, fairly large net worth. Then they have to act in a fiduciary capacity, right? That means they have to do things in the interest of their customers. And if they don't, like if they steer their customers into wrong products and things like that, then they could be sued. Right? Also, they are not supposed to take any commission from any third party. So they only operate on fees which are paid explicitly by the customer. So if you hear all this, it sounds very good, right? So why aren't people using RIAs? That's because RIAs are relatively new and people don't realize how much they're paying because a lot of the fees are hidden, right? So, okay, so Sahil is also joining. So Sahil is the CEO of Bharosa Club. He also happens to be Anita and my son, but he is really the CEO. He was quite interested in what we are trying to do with this division. So I will ask him to step in a little bit from time to time if he wants to. But right. So essentially, what we've got to understand is that this RIA hasn't taken off in a big way for two reasons. One is that it is pretty hard to become an RIA. The second thing is that a lot of customers, because they're unaware, they don't want to pay explicit fees. Right? So if you don't know what fees you're paying, you won't negotiate, right? But if you know that you're paying this much fee, then there's this tendency to thoda to discount there or whatever, right? So that is one of the reasons. Now, why we are kind of starting this division is because the basic mission of Bharosa Club is to have a Paisa Vasool Club. So one, people should know how much they're paying, what paisa they're paying, and for whatever paisa they're paying, they should get vasool, right? That's the basic mission. And we want to try and stop bad selling because a lot of people get stuck in the wrong insurance policies, the wrong mutual funds, the wrong PMS, the wrong AIF, or whatever it is, a lot of things, because the person who's selling them is a very good salesman or saleswoman, makes them feel very good. But the thing is that they are more interested in how much commission they are going to earn, right? So PMS is a portfolio management scheme, which is basically has a high minimum. So supposedly the PMS manager is very good at picking stocks and so on and so forth, operates with a limited number of high net worth customers, and supposedly tries to beat active mutual funds and passive mutual funds, right? But those people who use PMS, if they look at their reports and they'll look, first of all, the reports are very complicated. So we will, in fact, for anyone who's part of this service, we will ask them to send us their PMS statements and we will analyze it for them, right, in a correct way, so that they know what their return is from the PMS. AIF is an alternative investment fund, which is basically for things like venture capital, hedge funds, maybe real estate funds, REITs, and so on and so forth. Right? So again, these are relatively complex products, but you can break down any complex product into how much money did you put in, how much is it worth today, what cash flows you've got, and compare it with other things, right? So in this division, what we plan to do is offer a full service solution, where, so I'll go into what the solution is. I'll share a little bit of a screen, okay, on this. But before I go to the screen, let me just stop here and see, are there any questions from Pankaj, you or Barnali?
Not from my side, sir.
Okay. Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, cool. Okay, so let me share my screen because that'll now make it a little clearer as to what we are talking about. Okay, so can you see this Excel kind of screen?
Yep.
Barnali, you can also, right? So here, what I've tried to lay out is that what are the kind of sheets. So if you sign up for the service, you will get some output from us, okay? There will be a fair amount of input you will have to give us, right? And like if I'm the advisor, then it's like going to a doctor, right? If you don't share your symptoms with the doctor, then the doctor cannot give you a diagnosis or a prescription or whatever, right? And like a doctor, you are free to follow that prescription, discuss it with your doctor, follow part of it, have a discussion and so on and so forth. So it's almost like your relationship with your advisor is one. So there are two types of services. One is called discretionary and the other is called non-discretionary. So in the discretionary service, you just give your money and say, I just want a return. I don't care how you do it, just do it for me. So that is not the kind of service that we are offering, right? We are saying that we will discuss your needs with you, analyze where you are currently. So that's in some of my earlier videos, what is your as-is state, what the should-be state, and so on and so forth. This goes a little more granular, right? So there are these sheets. So one, you'll get a dashboard, right? Simple thing. What's your overall position? How many members are there in your family? What's your net worth? And so on and so forth. Some things like how many active investments do you have? How many passive investments do you have? Maybe things like how many bank accounts you have, how many credit cards you have, and stuff like that. Because the thing is, and why we said over 50 and over 2.5 crores is we wanted to get reasonably complex portfolios. And for people, because as they age, then some of these things like health insurance, protection, estate planning, wills, worrying about their children, trying to impart good values to their children, all those kind of things become relatively more important. And it helps us develop a set of products because we intend to use technology a lot, right? So currently, we are going to charge like 62,500 plus 18% GST for the first 6 months. But the objective is going to be that while the fee will probably remain the same for portfolios of this size, because I think we will deliver a lot more value than this, right? Because if the Vasool is not more, then, but what may happen is that if the person becomes confident over time of being able to handle their own portfolio, right? Then they, and what these tools are and how to use them and all that, we want to be able to provide them those automated tools. So they may say, oh, now I'm confident I can do this on my own, right? I don't need a human advisor, right? Then their cost will become much lower. Or they may say, look, I'm too busy, paying this, whatever money is fine. My advisor is adding a lot of value. So it's that whole biryani example that I gave in some of my other videos, that I may know how to cook a biryani, but I don't want to cook it, right? I want to go and eat a biryani, right? Because I can afford to pay for it, right? So that is going to be the broad outline, that what we want to do, and in terms of our mission, and I think I'll let Sahil talk to that a little more, is that we want to try and lower the cost of becoming an RI, maybe even having other people use our platform, people other than us, so that a lot more people in India have access to the RIA kind of advice, because we think that's the right kind of advice. Sahil, do you want to come in and add a bit to this?
Sure. Hi, Bernali. Hi, Pankaj. So,
Hi, Sahil.
hi. So essentially, Papa hit all the key points. Bharosa Club has always had at its core that we hate how financial products are distributed in the market right now. They're really complicated. The manufacturers make them complicated. The distributors confuse you intentionally, because that's how they make their margin, and so Bharosa Club is really trying to be a customer advocate, someone on your side. And that's why we are very explicit about charging you fees, because then where we are making our money. If we don't do a good job for you, you can fire us, right? But if you don't know what you're paying, as Papa was saying, you don't know who this person's working for, right? And so very excited that you guys have joined the beta group. And as Papa said, I mean, our mission statement is that this is not just available for, high net worth people like yourselves. We want this technology to be built and accessible for everybody, and you guys will play a key part in that as we meet your needs, right? And figure out, what questions you have. You're basically going to have us at your beck and call, as we work on answering your queries. So it's going to be an exciting journey, and hopefully one that results in a lot of clarity from your end in terms of how to understand all the blocks of your financial life.
Okay, thanks, Sahil. So that was great. So, so there's a quantitative part to this advice, and there's a qualitative part. And I would argue that the qualitative part is probably more important than the quantitative part. So we do want to cover both when we actually get into this whole advice. There's a very formal process. You'll have to sign an agreement and all those kind of things. We can't give you advice. Everything will be recorded. It'll be written, and so on and so forth, because those are the rules that SEBI has, and rightly so. In there. So that will be, so like I said, a quantitative part of it and a qualitative part. So I'll try and take you through both in this as terms of the output. So the dashboard we covered, that now a family unit, in fact, Bernali had a question, right? So the family unit can be very large, right? The fee covers all people in the family unit. The only thing is that the person who is interacting with me as the advisor or the head of that family unit, or the main person, may not be the head or whatever, but the person who's sort of managing the finances of this family unit should basically have access to all the information for all the people, right? So in this particular example I've given, there's a primary person, there's a spouse, father, mother, father-in-law, mother-in-law, son, daughter-in-law, daughter, son-in-law, grandson, granddaughter, we would like to cover everybody, right? To the extent that the person who's engaging us wants that person covered, right? Now, some of them may be resident Indians, some of them may be OCI, some may be NRI, all that kind of stuff. We don't mind that, right? Because we ourselves are US citizens and with an OCI card, right? So we have a lot of experience in terms of handling all this kind of thing. So that also kind of makes us a little bit unique in terms of this family unit type of thing. And so someone may say, oh, the fee is 62,000, but the fee is for a family unit, not for an individual. Okay. Then we come to this thing, which I won't talk about much. This is a wealth index, but I use a wealth index, right? Like I have a Sensex, you have Sensex, Nifty. So I've created a little bit of a wealth index. It's red here because we don't plan to include that in the initial technology, right? But in your manual stuff that I do for you, you will get a wealth index, and I'll explain what that is to you in there. I find it really useful in terms of managing my wealth. Then your assets. So I'll quickly show you like your assets, you have your mutual funds, stocks, etc. But under each of these categories, if you have multiple mutual funds, you have multiple stocks, maybe you trade stocks, maybe you do futures and options, bonds, bank accounts, etc., etc. We will cover all of those, right? And one of the things that I have found after a lot of experimentation in there is that in quite a few cases, being very simple is nice, right? So the funny paradox is that you don't need to be complex to generate good returns. In fact, you can be simple and you may get better returns. And then it becomes much easier for your family, your heirs, etc., to manage things and to understand things. Because I've seen so many people, and I've helped a lot of people also, where an unfortunate event has occurred, someone has passed away, and the family is clueless. They just don't know where what is, right? So one simplification definitely helps. The other is, of course, doing what I call the qualitative things, like the housekeeping and all that kind of stuff. So that's the assets. Then, of course, the liabilities. Then the income and expenses is again very interesting, just on one point, that people don't track their realized income and their unrealized income. Sometimes only because your unrealized income doesn't come anywhere, like you're not paying taxes on it, right? So,
Papa, if I can jump in just briefly. So, look, we're showing you these, sketches of the outputs and stuff. They'll be prettified and things will be explained. And, so don't be daunted if you don't understand all these terms. You will be able to ask questions on any and every of them, right? So, that's the beauty of this exercise. Like you're going to have a lot of ability to ask whatever you're confused about.
Yeah. Okay. And then, the protection. So all the insurances that you have, like ranging from car insurance to travel insurance to health insurance, maybe some of you still have some life insurance, whatever, but all the kind of things. Then your projections. Now, there are very many different ways of doing projections. You can just use formulas, future value, present value, MPMT, this, that, and the other, whatever. But, we would like to experiment with a somewhat different way of doing projections, which makes more sense. It's like an annual budgeting exercise, so we'll try and do that, see whether people like it, and then design stuff. So the whole stuff is, as much as we will present you things which I think you will find extremely valuable, we will also learn from you as to what do you want, what do you need, and so on and so forth. And as this whole service grows, people can learn from each other, right? Like if somebody is using a PMS, and that's fabulous, okay, it's doing really well, then we can let other people know that, this PMS seems to be a good one. And now for PMS and AIF also, there is a direct option, right? So you can save commissions on that in terms of going through that. So it's really going to be as the service grows, like say initially when the service is small, we probably will not be able to get you a pre-IPO allocation of stocks, or to get into unlisted stocks. So like if you want to buy SpaceX stock, I probably won't be able to get that for you, or whatever. But or in terms of arranging borrowing at LIBOR or whatever, if you want to borrow and grow your assets. So those are not things that we can do when we are small. When we are big, we possibly can even do that if people want. But our whole thing is that, yes, if you have an enormous corpus and you want to play around with, say, 20% of your corpus to try and beat the market, then that may be a good thing. But in most cases, for the bulk of your money, if you meet the market or slightly beat it, that's good enough. And most things, we've now seen like a lot of pretty large portfolios. And we find that quite a few of them have fairly poor returns. So we know the lifetime IRR, at least on mutual funds, and it's pretty bad, right? Because they've gone in, out, whatever they've done, right? Whichever way they've done it, right? So I think there's a tremendous value add just from simplification and all those kind of things, right? Okay, then, so we'll do the projections, then we'll also come up with a should be state. So one of the key things that you'll need to do if you want to use the service is, and also like, I think Pankaj, you still to upload your portfolio, etc., and join Bharosa.
Will
right?
do.
Huh?
Will do.
Right. Yeah. So that's very important for a couple of reasons, right? One is that we will be using this if we launch the service, because this is going to be our primary analysis tool. So if there is a person who says, I have no mutual funds, then that's fine. You can skip this step. But if you do have mutual funds, then we will insist that you use this service because it helps us with the analysis. Right. Later, Bharosa Club will build a service for stocks and PMS and AIF, maybe, right? But we need those insights because the way Bharosa analyzes them, and that's credit to Sahil and his partner Ujjwal, it's just outstanding, right? So I can't do my job if a person does not get onto this thing. And we will also, for risk profiling, we are going to use something on Bharosa Club, which is called the investing playground, right? So we're going to use that to figure out what your risk profile is and whether your holding power matches your risk profile or not. So then we will come up with a should be state, right? Saying, okay, this is what we want our portfolio to look like. And then the action plan to get there, because there are all kinds of taxes, there are all kinds of other things and things like that. So you cannot do this all in one shot. If there is a discussion around philanthropy, then we could have that as well. This housekeeping point, while it's one small point, it's probably the most important point out of all these points, right? So estate planning, wills, making sure that everything is done, that you suddenly don't find out, oh, I need to make this foreign trip, but this visa is expired, right? And so on, so on. So it's just like a very simple housekeeping kind of thing where you do a one-time exercise and then you get reminders, hey, you need to renew this, you need this thing is failed or whatever, right? In there. And someone was telling me that 78% of the cases in the courts in India, I don't know if this figure is correct because it seems a little high to me, but 78% of the cases are of family disputes in India.
Right,
Right?
sir.
So, that just shows you the importance of having a will, in there. And then an action plan, of course, and then the notes. So one of the things which has irritated me personally a lot in the past is that, I'm like a wealth management customer of ICICI Bank, so I don't really use their products. I mean, I only use the bank account where I keep some money, and I use a credit card where I have a fair amount of spending, but I really don't use anything else. But still, I've been categorized as a wealth management customer. Now, my relationship manager keeps changing every 1 year.
Yeah.
Right? And the relationship manager has no idea of what this thing is. Now, it's a reality, that people will leave, new people will come, etc., etc. But why can't you have notes, so if you have said something to me, I've noted it down. If someone takes over from me, they should be able to look at those notes, right? So how do you provide a really solid service is what we are looking to do with our partners who are and we're going to limit so if we don't have at least 5 people who join the beta, we won't do the beta because then we don't have enough demand, right? But I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think we will have 5 people, and we're going to limit it to 10 because I can't handle more than 10 because a lot of the stuff will be manual in there, and I want to devote enough time to each person in this service, right? And then there are various compliance and process things that we have to sort out. Plus, like we are a small company, so that might also delay the beta or whatever it is. But at this point in time, I think we're all pretty excited that if we get a nice group of people, it'll be a lot of fun to work with them. And also, we think we'll add a lot of value to them. And they will add a lot of value to us, which is wonderful. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just open it up to questions. And then if we are done, we'll end.